Good morning. Nice to see you, although I can't. Hope you're doing well. So we're going to take a comfortable seat and we're going to do a little bit of breath work to begin. Okay? So if you've got something to sit up on, I use a yoga brick, but if you don't have anything as fancy as that, a cushion, a couple of books, something that's relatively comfortable to sit up on. Okay. So take your seat, and if you find sitting down on the mat or the floor is uncomfortable, and look, it is uncomfortable for many of us, we're not used to doing it, sit in a chair, no big deal. But we're going to spend a couple of minutes just, in one sense, arriving. So I want you to get comfortable in your seat, close your eyes, and as you close the eyes, simply first notice the breath. Just notice it as it is. Notice your inhalation and your exhalation. And then can you bring the attention down to the foundation? So, whatever your bum is sitting on, if you're sitting on a chair, maybe you've got the soles of your feet on the floor. Just whatever parts of you are connected to that support that you're sitting on. Just notice those spaces. You don't have to work anything out, just to notice them for your mind, your awareness, your attention to be in those places. So one of our biggest struggles in life is feeling safe. This is what our nervous system yearns to experience, is a sense of safety. And these are just very simple ways in which we begin to teach our system that it's okay. Because a lot of the time, we tend to be enveloped in the part of our nervous system that simply just doesn't believe it's okay. And it has us in this kind of perpetual overworking and wearing out mechanism, where we're using so much energy to kind of negate or push away this feeling of it doesn't feel safe. And if you think about what we're fed in terms of the media, in terms of advertising, and so much of it is wrapped up in this idea of it's not safe, you're not enough, it needs to be more. But there's part of our nervous system that is perfectly adept at experiencing a sense of I am safe, I am enough. That's intrinsic to what we are as human beings, but not always accessed. And these practices are a way of beginning to play with our capacity to drop into that part of ourselves. It doesn't mean that we deny that there's a part that is struggling, that finds it difficult, that is wrapped up in the lack experience. Whatever is there for us, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, the invitation is always to turn toward it and to acknowledge it. But what we would strive to achieve is our capacity to be able to view the fear-based part of ourselves from the bigger part that is able to hold it, let's say, with a kind of a modicum of compassion or a modicum of wisdom. So it's not running the show for us. Because when the fear stuff runs the show, even though it might be unconscious and we mightn't be aware of it in our day-to-day, it might just pop up occasionally, it creates a particular internal environment, in which we're producing particular chemicals, the body is holding itself in a particular way, and it creates more of a struggle to be here and to be alive. Maybe we could say more of a struggle than we need to be experiencing. So our practice is, can we, through the course of this hour or so, can we begin to work in ways that support us moving to that part of our nervous system that is able to experience, feel, know, hold this bigger perspective, that it's okay, we're okay. So we're noticing the breath. I want you to see, can you breathe through your nose if possible? And just very simple breath. Even if we were to slow the breath down a little, let's say we inhaled for a count of 3 and exhaled for a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Very simple, comfortable, almost effortless breath. Where we're just seeing, as we begin our practice this morning, can we begin to regulate through the nose? And the breath is a really direct way of beginning to affect the nervous system, to bring the nervous system back into homeostasis or balance. And it's important also to state through our practice that part of the practice is great and comfortable and enjoyable and feels great, but part of it isn't that. Part of it is just uncomfortable. Part of it, we're going to meet resistance. It's inevitable. We all have these little mechanisms that don't want things to change, that are kind of, the devil we know part of us, that just isn't interested in growth and change. It wants to keep things the same because it fears that change will just bring suffering. So we're going to meet those places as we practice. And I encourage you to remember that they're just part of the process, particularly as we begin our practice and we begin to slow down and we begin to come back into balance. The parts that aren't in balance, they're going to rear their head and probably make some noise. And more or less, most of us will be feeding these places unconsciously. So stay with the practice. Keep coming back to the practice as the anchor. Could you deepen the breath a little now? So you're inhaling for 5 and exhaling for 5. Slow, deep, steady breath. And then whatever else is there for you, whatever else you're noticing, just notice it and stay with the breath. And know that all the feelings, the thoughts, the sensations, they're simply moving through you. That you are a conduit, and through this practice, we're clearing ourselves out. We got to see what's there to begin to release it and let it go. Inhale for 5 and exhale for 5. Inhale for 5 and exhale for 5. Nice. Stay with it. Few more breaths like this. So after the next longer exhalation, let the breath return to its natural rhythm. Perfect. Take your time. And then we're all going to come to standing. So we're going to come up to standing. Okay. So we're standing. We've got our feet about hip distance apart. First thing I want you to do is look down at your toes and just move them around a little. Just spread the toes, move the toes, feel the toes, notice the toes. Even the sense of them getting tired, or the front of the feet getting tired, or some of the tightness that's in there. So in order to begin to support the body in doing what it's designed to do, we need to begin to look at the ways in which we tend to move And all of us will have areas that will overwork and areas that will underwork and places we're using and other areas we're not using. And we're interested in beginning to teach the body how to work in a way that's more balanced, where every part is doing what it's designed to do. They're all communicating in the way they're designed to. And then we're in this process of beginning to move back into balance, just to basically feel better. So I want you to see if you can try to spread your toes out. Try to spread them out. All of the toes are on the floor. And then very simple, we'll just lift the heels up and slowly down. Very simple, up and slowly down. And I want you to really control the descent of the heels. So go down slowly. So you'll feel how the front of the feet really need to begin to do their job for the heels to come down super light. Because of course, isn't the tendency most of us will have experienced when we're moving around unconsciously, we're heavy in our heels. You know, we notice it through the wearing of the heels, usually imbalanced on one side more than the other. But even this idea of the heels being heavy, it tells us the feet aren't working in the way they're designed to. And our feet are designed like a spring. So when you're waking up the front of the feet, and we refer to the front as the paws of the feet, you're going to begin to create much more support for everything above the feet, which is the rest of the body, but specifically in through the ankles, the legs, the knees, thighs, hips, glutes. All of those parts rely on the feet having that quality of buoyancy active in them. Yeah. So this is the arch, is the muscle of the arch of the feet. And that wakes up as you're doing this. So it's very simple, but actually a really important little part of the body to pay attention to and to work with consciously. Okay. Just a few more of these. So again, really feel the toes staying down. Some of you will notice the toes won't want to stay down. They'll keep coming up. And it's just telling you that there's a habit they're used to. There's a way of moving that they're used to. And what we're going to do is basically peel that layer away eventually as we work in these ways. So we're going to unveil or reveal the body's more basic programming, which is to work in a way that is balanced, that is open, that is free, that is light. That's what our bodies are designed to offer us. So the work is a movement in that direction. Okay, so we're going to keep the heels down, but we're going to keep the weight forward in the feet. So we're intentionally keeping the toes anchored. And then very simple, I take my fingers to the groins, just at that spot, that kind of slightly indented spot of the groins. And then very simple, I'm going to begin to press the groins back, sit my bum back and begin to lean forward. Now I'm keeping my gaze forward rather than dropping it down to the floor. And then I just go far enough so I can bring the hands to the base of my thighs just above my knees and rest them there. And I have my fingers on the outside and my thumbs on the inside of the knees. Okay? And I can just rest here for a few moments. And then notice where the weight is in the feet again. And you'll notice it'll keep wanting to drop to the heels. Again, it's just the way we've been used to carrying ourselves, inhabiting our bodies. So again, bring the weight forward, and just like we did before, very simple, little pulse up with the heel. And you're trying to, again, move slowly in terms of descending the heel back to the floor. You're trying to keep the toes anchored on the earth as you do it. And then anything you notice in terms of that not happening or not working the way you would like it to, again, it's just information that it's giving us. It's telling us about some of the habits and patterns that we're now addressing and paying attention to and shifting and changing. So very simple. A couple more of these again. And again, you'll notice the feet will get tired, the arches in the feet will get tired. And that's great because it's again engaging these muscles that are not used to working for us and doing their job. Okay, very simple. Again, we have the heels on the floor. The weight is slightly forward in the feet. We're not going to move, but I'm going to press my legs apart. So without moving the legs, I'm pushing the legs into the hands, into the fingers. I'm pressing them apart. And what I want to feel is that sense of widening in the pelvis, and then let it all relax. And then do it again. Push the legs apart. Feel that widening action in the pelvis and let it relax. And keep pulsating that action. Keep pressing the legs apart and releasing, and pressing apart and releasing. And we keep going. Pressing apart and releasing. So as you feel that engagement in the pelvis, your thigh bone is actually widening in your hip socket, and then you're releasing it. It's widening and then you're releasing it. Widening and releasing it. That's it. Stay with that. A couple more of these. Now, even as you're doing this, can you still keep the weight slightly forward in the 2 feet? So the toes are active. Stay with it. Few more of these. Perfect. And then come all the way up. And again, you'll notice things get tired quite quickly because we're working in ways we're not used to working. And it's retraining the body. But these ways of beginning to align will help the communication between the feet, between the legs, between the hips, into the back, all of these parts that tend to, as we move, most of us, in the modern world, we move in ways in which the body is very compartmentalized, where certain areas just aren't doing their job. Okay. So again, we go into this position. Now, as I go down into this position, I'm going to take one hand to the lower back. I'm just going to feel the position of the lower back. And I want to create an arch in that space in which I feel the muscle either side of the spine, almost like a valley, creating a valley for the spine to kind of be inside, in the middle of that valley. Now, if I'm rounded, if the belly is tight and the back's rounded, then I'm going to feel the vertebrae protruding. And that's, again, a lot of what we tend to do and weakens the position of the back. So I'm in this position. My bum sticks out a little. I've got that valley shape in the lower back. I can feel it. Hands are on that position, base of the thighs. I'm pushing the legs apart again. I'm going to maintain the resistance this time. And I'm doing the same work with the feet. So I'm pressing the legs apart, maintaining that resistance, and just pulsing the heels up. Now, you might lift the heels a millimeter off the floor. It's not important about how high you go, but just maintaining the action. Now breathe, breathe. So you feel that sense of engagement, that widening action in the pelvis. Breathe 3. Breathe 2. One more. Nice work. And then come on up. Great stuff. So this position is really great because it takes your thigh bone back in your hip socket, and then the pressing of the legs apart creates that widening action. And the head of the femur then sits in a different position in your hip, and it's a much better position for the overall working of the pelvis. It allows blood to move through the system. Anyone who's got issues with their hips or lower back, these are the ways in which you begin to clear those. Okay, so we're going to go a little deeper into working with the pelvis. You might want to put a hand on something, a wall or a chair or something to support you, because we're going to lift one foot off the floor. So I'll mirror you guys. I'm going to take my left foot over your right ankle. Take your left foot over your right ankle. Sorry, excuse me. Left foot over your right knee. Left foot over your right knee. Yeah, so you can have a hand on something as you do that. Now, same work in the bottom foot. The toes are active. I've got weight in the front of the foot. And then the same movement in the pelvis, where I sit the bum back to whatever feels accessible. So just as far as you feel it's okay to go. And again, what I want to do is take the pelvis back and keep the gaze slightly forward and try to maintain that arch in the lower back, as opposed to the belly tightening and the gaze dropping. And then a little pulsing. Maybe you can pulse the bottom heel up and down again. Just a few rounds of that. A little bit more challenging than last time. And then we'll release. And if you find that any of these are too much, feel free to go back to the last one that was accessible. Yeah? So all of them are working in a similar vein. Second side, ankle over thigh. And what you do is you take the foot and the ankle slightly past the back leg, as opposed to having the foot on the leg. And you'll notice if the foot is on the leg, you get this crease of the inner ankle, and we don't want that crease. That creates a particular positioning of the bones that we're not interested in. So we take the foot just slightly past. And the same idea, weight forward in the bottom foot, so the toes are really active and doing their job. And then the groins go back. So we sit the bum back. And we can even pulse a little here. And then as we sit the bum back, maybe we can lift that bottom heel up and down a few times. That's it. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. And then release. And just shake the legs out a little. Again, these are ways of working we're not used to, but we're encouraging an alignment that allows the body to work as more of that integrated balance system where all sides are beginning to fire and work and do their job together, as opposed to one part doing most of the work and ultimately wearing out. You think about, you know, hip replacements, knee replacement, all of this stuff is a symptom of the bodies, our bodies, just being out of alignment. And it's a really common, like if you look at bodies, particularly in the West, you'll see the same thing over and over again. And this is after 15 years or so of teaching and looking at bodies, I see the same patterns again and again. It's really, really common what we're going through. So one more time, line up the 2 feet so they're hip distance and parallel. Bend the knees, sit the bum back, bring the hands down. Okay. Again, you're pressing the legs apart. So you're trying to feel that widening action in the pelvis, that resistance in the pelvis. Now, the weight is forward in the 2 feet. Now, what we're going to try to do is keep that work in the legs, even though we go to move the arms. And I'm going to take my hands up onto my ribs, fingers at the front, thumbs at the back. And I want to breathe into the ribs. I'm holding the lower ribs, not on the waist. I'm on the rib cage, on the lower ribs. In particular, I'm interested in the back ribs. They're going to be the trickier part to fill up and expand. So I'm breathing into the back ribs in particular, and I want to feel them literally pressing back into my thumbs. I can even squeeze in with my hands to encourage the ribs to expand. I'm going to try to keep the weight forward in the feet, keep the legs in this position. As I feel the ribs, I'm literally going to pull the ribs away from the hips. I'm going to pull one side, pull the other side. And I might get a little bit more vertical in the upper body as I do that, but I've still got this kind of squatting position going on with the legs and hips. And breathe. You notice the length in the belly, sense of the sternum being slightly lifted, the gaze is forward. I'm still pressing the ribs out into the hands as best I can. And then can I bring some of that fullness and begin to arc over to the left? So I'm trying not to change the legs and hips. And then as I arc to the left, the right side begins to stretch. And the moment you notice any tension or that sense of stretching, I want you to just pause and breathe into what you're meeting. Breathe into what you're meeting. Breathe into what you're meeting. And breathe 3. Breathe 2. And then we come all the way back. Okay. Now as you come back, still holding the ribs, take a few of those deeper breaths. Just wait for the ribs to fill up. Gaze forward. Even the idea of lifting the ribs away from the hips. So this mid region, you know, this is the area that tends to get so dense for us. But actually, it's designed to be really elasticated. You think of it, there's no bone in this mid-region other than the spine, no other bones. So the tissue is designed to stay really elasticated, and we just, you know, we lose that, or we forget how to maintain it. We're not doing what the body is designed to be doing to keep that sense of fluidness. So as you fill the ribs up and lift the ribs, you're kind of retraining or teaching the tissue about what it's designed to do. And then we're going to begin to arc over toward the right. And again, the moment you meet tension, it might be on the left side, but you might notice it on the right side. Wherever it is, wherever the tension is or the tightness is, that's where your attention is needed. Imagine you could breathe into that space. Try to keep that position with the feet, legs, and hips. And breathe. 3, 2, 1, and then come on back. And again, just shake it all out again. Shake the legs, shrug a little through the shoulders. Okay, so we're going to go back into those positions, and we're going to bring a little bit of movement as we go into those positions. So we're going to stitch a few things together. So we line the 2 feet up, hip distance and parallel. We spread the toes, we feel into the feet, Every time you go to a part of the body that you're not used to going to, you're building connection. So you're literally, your nervous system is organic, it's growing, it's changing, it's evolving all of the time, particularly when you bring the conscious mind to participating in that. So when you feel into the toes, your ability to notice that space is going to increase. Because a lot of the time we're walking around and we just don't notice our toes. We're not paying attention to these places. And it's almost as if as you begin to notice them, as you begin to pay attention to them, it's more easy for them to do their job efficiently, what they're designed to do. A lot of the time, it's almost as if they feel like they're being pushed out of the circle. Yeah. So feel the toes, feel the weight forward in the feet. We take the groins back a little, so we sit the bum back. We still got that arch in the lower back. We hold the ribs. We breathe into the ribs. You'll notice maybe how the front ribs will move faster than the back ribs. So I encourage you to really focus on the fullness in the back of the rib cage. Like, teach yourself to breathe into the back space, to feel the movement of the back ribs. Same principle as, you're working with the toes, paying attention to what you usually don't pay attention to. The back of the body, very similar. So as you fill, you pull your ribs away from your hips, lifting it up, opening it up, throat open. We're going to begin to arc over to the right. And then can we come back to center, sit down a little deeper, keeping the weight forward in the feet. Remember what we did already. And then we're going to pulse up and over. Doesn't matter which side. You come back to center, sit down, up and over. Now, as you're transitioning, and it can be a very small movement, you don't need to go far. I'm more interested in the weight staying forward in the feet, maintaining the curves of the spine, having a sense as you sit back of the glutes kind of engaging and expanding. So really working, think of them as part of what propels you back up. Stay with the breath. That's it for 5, 4, 3, 2, one more. 1. Perfect. And then we'll just release everything. We'll just shake it out again. Beautiful. Perfect. Okay, second side. So we line the 2 feet up. Groins go back, knees go forward. Yeah. Notice where the knees are. Don't let the knees buckle in together. Okay. That's just talking or telling us that there's tightness in the inner legs. And that will refer or show a weakness in the arches as well. So the knees track over the ankles, or you could even take the knees just slightly wider than the ankles, slightly wider. Go to the ribs, hold the ribs, fill the ribs, back ribs full. So really get into the feeling of the ribs pressing out against the hands. Again, the hands can press in as a resistance, as a point of reference. You fill and lift the ribs up. We're going to arc in the other direction. Now, the moment you get tightness, you get soreness, you pause. You don't have to go further. So it's not about how far can I get. So drop that idea and just be with the feeling in the body. And the moment you're connecting to tightness, we're working with that particular place, that layer. It's about peeling each layer away. So quite often the mind wants to get as far as it can, and we kind of skip past some of the important bits. So just whatever you're connecting to, breathe. And then can we come back through center? Can we sit the bum back? So think of the hips going back rather than just down. And then press down through the feet to arc you up and over, and sit back and down, up and over. That's it. Keep breathing, keep pressing the ribs into the 2 hands. And breathe 3. Breathe 2. 1 more. Beautiful. And then come all the way back and release. And a little shrug in the shoulders. Okay, perfect. So we're going to do a little bit of work with our shoulders. If I take the right hand behind my back and I slide it up to wherever it wants to go to. Yeah? Again, I'm not forcing, so whatever feels accessible. I take the other arm up and over, so the fingers are pointing toward each other. Now, you might find the fingers connect, you might find they don't connect. Either is fine, doesn't matter. Either is fine. Okay. First thing I want you to do is close your eyes and breathe into the hands. Yeah, breathe into the part of the back that the hands are connected to. So can you send the breath into those spaces? That's it. So the idea of the back, there's a pulsing quality as you breathe into it, but there's also, as you inhale, there's a filling up of that space. And this is something that we need to get used to doing with the body, is bringing the body to its fullest expression, teaching it how to expand. And that expansion, although it requires effort in the beginning, will ultimately create more freedom. Now, simple, the top elbow stretches upward. It might stretch up 1 millimeter, it might stretch up further, it doesn't matter. As you connect into tightness through that side of the body, breathe into it. Breathe into it, wherever the tension is. So it might be through the side you're elongating, but you might also notice a tightening in the other side as it shortens. So wherever the most tension is, that's where the breath is. That's where the breath is. Stay with the breath. Perfect. 3, 2, 1. And then we'll release, and a little shrugging in the shoulders. And we're going to go to the second side. So the arms in the opposite position. And again, the first thing you do is you bring the hands into whatever position is accessible, is you breathe. You breathe into the back of the body. Breathe into the back of the body. Breathe into the hands wherever they are. Notice if your head is jutting forward because of the position of the upper arm, and see, can you take it back a little? Can the gaze be forward? Can you have a sense of the front of the throat is open? Those big expanding breaths into the ribs again. Top elbow begins to stretch upward. Again, as you connect into tightness, if it's in the arm or in the side of the body, just pause and breathe. Imagine you could breathe into that space, even if it is your arm. Stay with it. You got this for 3, for 2, for 1, and then release that. Perfect. And again, get to shrug a little. Okay, so again, we're going to go back into that position. We're going to stitch a few places or a few pieces together and do some of that squatting motion that we were doing with it. So we line the 2 feet up, we spread the toes. Okay, first side with the arms. So one arm goes up and over, one arm goes back and up. Again, maybe the hands connect, maybe they don't, doesn't matter. First thing is breathe into the back. So we're waking up. We want more dexterity in our back, more access to our back, more support from our back. And if our back is disconnected, it just can't do the job it's designed to. And these are the big muscles in the body, or in the back of the body. It's literally this idea of the backbone, the supportive structure of the body. And in the West, we don't really have much access to it. It's kind of disconnected. And it's a huge resource that we're not tapping into. So in terms of, particularly if we're growing older, getting the back body active, working well is so important. And actually, when the back begins to do its job more efficiently, the front of the body will relax more. There's more opening in the front of the body. And the tendency when the back is disengaged, the front gets really tight and protected. We see it in a lot of older people who, will continually look down, and there's that sense of the hunched overness. And that's a disengagement of the back. It shows that the back has not been doing its job. So again, stretch the top elbow up, breathe into the ribs. This time we're going to arc away from the top elbow. So you're arcing. So if you've got the right elbow up, you're arcing over to the left a little. Again, you get to call how far you go, whatever feels available. Now, feel the feet. Can you, as you grip with the toes, can you bend the knees forward, sit the bum back? So we're coming back to center as we go into that squatting position. And then we're going to push the feet down to come up and over to the side again. So we just nice and slow. Knees stay nice and wide as you come down. Breathe. Bum goes back. Up and over. Bum goes back. Up and over. Let's do 2 more. Big breaths. You're still breathing into the back of the ribs. 1 more. Perfect. You got it. And then release. And again, just shrug. Like we're opening up all of this space of the ribs, and that then the work with the shoulders, and that's going to relieve the neck and the jaw. It helps us be able to breathe more efficiently, and then obviously we're able to get the oxygen we need through the breath. But also this upper part of the body is all about mobility and ease, and this is the reason there's no bones through the middle of the body. So we have lots of dexterity, but of course, if one part isn't working, if other parts are in kind of protection mode, then that mobility is going to be severely curtailed. And of course, when this area then gets tight, you think of all the organs that are in there that won't be working efficiently because of that tightness. So all of this, we go slowly, we go safely, we're not forcing, but all of it is bringing us into more freedom. Even not just in terms of the exterior movement of the body, but maybe even more importantly of the interior movement of the body. The way blood will transition through the organs, the way the organs get to work and pulsate and clear themselves out and renew and renew and renew. So we're interested in much more of that vitality. Okay, so again, line up the 2 feet, feel into the front of the feet. We're going to go the opposite side with the arms, whatever position is accessible. Close the eyes for a moment, breathe into the back of the body. Breathe into the back of the body. Breathe into where the hands are. Deep breath, stretch up through the top elbow to whatever feels okay. Keep breathing. As you notice somewhere getting tight, that's where you've got to address. This is the important part, is we're learning to take responsibility for where there is contraction in the experience, in our own experience, and then how we work with that. Yeah, how we work with it, not just in terms of the physical experience, but contraction in terms of those moments that are difficult. So it's a process of learning to take responsibility. Breathe, fill. Maybe we arc the top elbow over to the side a little, so it just brings us a little deeper. Please don't force. Take a moment, breathe into the back, breathe into the tightness. And then slowly we come back to center. We sit the bum back, weight stays forward in the feet. I know it's a little tricky. And then we pulse up and over. And we come back, up and over. Perfect. Keep going. You got this. Up and over. Nice work. That's it. Keep going. We're going to go 2 more. Sit the bum down, up and over. That's it. Let's go 1 more. Nice. And then we release again. Okay, perfect. Okay, 1 more thing in this standing position. And again, you might want to put a hand on a chair or on a wall or something. We're going to lift a leg. So if you lift the left leg and put the hand at the top of the shin, just below the knee. And I'm going to slide the hand down and see, can I hook the ankle and let the leg go behind me as I do that. Now, I know this might be a little tricky, and if it's not accessible, please don't force. Sometimes having a strap or a belt or something, and you can hold the leg in that way. Okay, some of you will be able to take the hand right over the toes. Now, straight away, you'll notice the quad, the front of the thigh, and the tension in there. And the first thing you do is you just pause. You just breathe, and you give the muscle time without forcing or straining. You just breathe back. When the front of the body is overworking, it gets tight and it pulls the skeleton into particular positions. So you just give it time to begin to unravel. And the only thing I'd like you to do here is that leg you're holding, could you press down through that knee? And it'll intensify the tightness. And you just breathe. And if it's too much, again, you could have it in a strap, but also you could have the foot on a chair or on a couch. So it's just slightly elevated, and it'll give you that access to some of the holding in that thigh. Okay? And then we'll release that side. And even if you just notice the two sides, you'll feel the difference in the two sides. Okay. Second side, we hold the top of the shin. Again, feel free to put a hand on a wall, slide the hand down, and if you can, you're hooking the foot. And you're just waiting, you're giving the body time. Breathing. And then pressing down through that knee to intensify it a little bit more, just go a little bit deeper. That's it, stay with it. For 3, 2, 1. And then we release and a little shake out, Okay, we're going to go first side one more time. So we're holding whatever way you can, whatever way is accessible. Again, maybe you just put the foot on the back, on a chair, on the seat of a chair, and that might be enough. Okay, so from here, what do we do in the standing legs? The toes are working, the knee goes forward, the bum sits back. So you're sitting the bum back and then pressing down and coming up. Very simple. For 5, 4, 3. Toes are really strong here. 2, 1. So it's a lot of work in the standing knee, but most of the time issues we have with the knee are because the foot isn't doing its job. So if we're getting the foot to really work, it's really going to support and strengthen the knee joints. Okay, so again, second side. Work into the standing foot. Keep it active. Knee goes forward, groins go back. We sit the bum back and we pulse. That's it for 5, for 4, for 3, 2, 1, and then we release. Okay, and again, get to shake him out. Okay, we're going to come down onto hands and knees. We're going to come down onto all fours, onto hands and knees. Now, as you come down onto hands and knees, I'm going to take my knees back just an inch or two. So the tendency as we come down is to be in this tight position. It's a really common predicament. Again, it's partly because the front of the body is used to being tight. It feels safe being tight. So we're opening it up a little, the space between the knees and the wrists. And then very simple, close the eyes and let the hips begin to sway a little. And I want you to sway in a way that feels so easy, almost as if there's no effort. And can you at the same time let the belly and the lower back relax? Let all of that space begin to relax. And breathe. And then can you take some deeper breath and you're breathing into the ribs. Breathing into the rib cage. And particularly into the back of the ribs. Particularly breathing into the back of the ribs. The lower back ribs. We focused on those before when we had the hands there. Breathe into the lower back ribs. Breathe into that space. Can you feel as you breathe into it how it creates a quality of expanding and then the softening as you release? Just a few breaths. And not only are you letting the hips sway, but then could you bring a little shrugging through the shoulders so that all of the movement you're doing has a kind of a liquid quality to it, a fluid quality to it. None of it's forced or strained. It might be tiny movements. But it's a way of being in the body, and even the work we've done now will have supported you in being able to access more of that fluidness. Because the body, of course, is a fluid system. We could look at the body as primarily fluid. It's more or less 80% water. And yet that's so not what we tend to experience on our day-to-day. We tend to experience holding, tightness, stuckness. And yet our body is fluid. Breathe and move and feel and notice. Just a few more breaths here. That's it. That's it. Stay with the breath. Stay with the breath for 3, 2, for 1. Okay. So the lower back is relaxed. You've got that arch that we spoke about earlier. The ribs are learning how to fill up. Really important process for the ribs to learn how to be full, to create space for organs, lungs, create space for the vertebrae. So as you fill the ribs up, you're literally separating the vertebrae, and that allows the discs more mobility, more health, more blood. Okay, so from here, I'm going to bring my 2 legs over to the left side of my mat. Bring the 2 legs over to the left, and then I'm going to lower my hips over to the right. Okay, so I can let the legs and hips be heavy here. Now, very simple, not easy, but simple. Push the hands down. You'll notice some tension in the body, in the waist, or a twisted sensation. Without moving, grip with the fingers, pull the hands towards you, like you're trying to drag the hands to your body. And that tension that you're revealing, I want you to breathe into it. Deep breaths into wherever that tension is. Breathe for 3. You got it. For 2. And then soften. Let the elbows bend, and we're going to come back up onto the knees. First thing is just let things sway and shrug and relax and breathe and notice. Fill the ribs up again, move the legs in the other direction, and then lower the hips. Perfect. And as the hips come down, again, let the hips and legs be heavy, deep expanding breath in the ribs. The hands, without moving, push down into the floor and pull towards you, and it creates that elongation, that opening up, and you breathe into what you're meeting. Breathe into it. Breathe for 3. Breathe for 2. Breathe for 1. And then relax, come down onto your shoulder, and then roll all the way over onto your back. Come all the way over onto your back. And when you get onto your back, your 2 knees are bent. We're going to take the 2 hands to the lower belly, just resting them on the lower abdomen. Elbows stay on the floor. So you let the elbows be heavy on the floor. Very simple. We're going to bring the soles of our feet together. Let the 2 knees drop apart. Now, if you find this is sore, and a lot of the work we've done earlier will have helped these spaces begin to open, but if you find this is sore, 2 options. 1 is you don't do it. You just extend the 2 legs out. 2 is you support the legs. You put something underneath them so that they can drop into whatever it is that's there to support them. Then the groins get to soften. But I don't want your groins overworking here. So I want you to be comfortable. Close your eyes. Bring your attention to your breath. If you can, you're breathing through your nose. Inhaling for 4. Exhaling for 4. Stay with your breath. Inhaling for 4. Exhaling for 4. Now, stay with the breath, but bring your 2 knees back up. Separate the feet so they're hip distance. We'll just stay in this position for a little bit longer. Inhale for 4, exhale for 4. A couple more of these deeper breaths. Now, after the next exhalation, let the breath come back to its natural rhythm, however it wants to be. Extend one leg out, then extend the other leg out. Keep the feet wider than the hips. We're going to take the arms a little bit away from the body, not straight out, but think about kind of halfway. So kind of a 45-degree angle. And if it's comfortable, I want you to turn the palms to face up toward the ceiling. Most important, you feel comfortable. And then very simple here, we're going to take 3 really deep breaths, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. And if the nose is blocked, do it all through the mouth. And each exhalation, I want you to drop into the mat. I want you to imagine you sinking down into the mat. And after those 3 deep breaths, come back to the natural rhythm. And we're just going to pause here for a few moments. And your job is to let your body rest. If you find your mind wanders, come to the breath, notice the breath. That's it, just stay with the breath. So let the attention come back to your breath now. Without moving or shifting, just be awareness. Notice. A big part of our conditioning in the West. A big part of our conditioning in the West is to be focused on getting the job done. So much of what we're taught as the most important attributes to develop are getting from point A to point B. You know, we get rewarded for that. We win a race, we get a medal, we get paid for doing the job. And as much as all of that is an intrinsic and important part of our lives, equally, the capacity to rest deeply. And we have all kinds of different ideas about rest, you know. And quite often when people aren't doing something, they can be seen as a weight to society, or, you know, in the West, we have a funny relationship with rest and we're not very good at it. A lot of the rest that we actually get isn't sufficient to support us. That our bodies are so wired to the sympathetic nervous system, to this kind of protective part of the nervous system, is that even when we go to sleep, we wake up and we haven't really rested deeply. So the work that we're doing in opening up the body and teaching the body how to work in a way it's designed to, helps the body do what it's designed to in terms of being able to work more efficiently, but to rest more deeply. And the resting quality has this connection to the idea of the beingness of the experience of being a human being. You know, being able to rest without having to do anything or go anywhere or distract ourselves. And for all of us, at some point, that's a difficult thing to do. That all of us carry something that we don't always want to look at or pay attention to, or we've all developed little mechanisms for staying slightly or stuck in that nervous system predicament. So even as you rest here, to notice there might be an inkling more space, or a tiny bit more comfort in doing nothing, in just letting the body be here and being aware. And there are two sides of one coin, the being part of our experience and the doing part. So I want you to come to sitting. Take your time, take a few deeper breaths, stretch in whatever way you want to. Bring yourself towards sitting. And then when you get to your seat, get as comfortable as you can. And maybe you're going to sit up in a chair. Maybe that's more comfortable. So it's important that you do what works for you. Not about what you should be doing or what you think you should be doing, but what works for you, what's comfortable for you. So we can spend the next 10 minutes sitting. Yeah. So if you're sitting and you find you get uncomfortable, you might find the level of discomfort is okay to be with. You might find it's a little too much, and then you just move or you shift. Yeah. So it's important that we don't get into this idea that we should be enduring suffering to be better. You know, and it's a classic, you know, even in terms of the Buddha's life, it's one of the steps the Buddha took on his journey was into the aesthetic life, into the, you know, the idea of starvation and pushing away the world in a sense. And really it doesn't work. There is a game in terms of meeting how we meet the discomfort of our lives or the challenges of our lives, that we're all in this process of refining our relationship to what is uncomfortable, but we're certainly not about creating more discomfort. Yeah. Okay, so we're sitting, we're going to close the eyes. As we did at the beginning, first thing is you notice your breath. So the sympathetic nervous system that tends to be unconsciously dominant for us is about protection. And in that, there's a kind of a disconnecting from life. There's a separating. It does it through the ideas that we hold about ourselves. We're these separate beings. We don't feel that quality of, this idea within so many spiritual traditions that we're part of a bigger matrix of life. Like most of us don't feel that in a day-to-day experience, a day-to-day way. So the thoughts around the nervous system are very pernicious. They're very deep. I'm separate. And that creates all kinds of other knock-on effects in the way we hold our body, in the way the body works or doesn't work. It ages us prematurely. Because even though we mightn't be able to perceive it, the deepest truth is that we are part of this web of life. We are part of this bigger matrix, this bigger tapestry of life. Now, there is part of our nervous system that gets that. The parasympathetic nervous system, this is what it's designed for us to experience, but we don't spend enough time in it to really be able to embed those deeper beliefs, to feel into them, to let them really permeate through us. We get moments in our lives where something incredible happens, whether it's a painful experience, maybe somebody is close to us who passes, or there's a birth, or those moments, or when you're in love, or where you really feel part of something, even if it's a terrible part of something, it's part of something bigger. So through our practice, we're interested in consciously opening to this possibility. So even as you sit, you notice the breath. The breath is so much about connection. You go down to the foundation, what you're sitting on, that's about connection, how you're supported in this moment. You take a few deeper breaths, that expanding of the ribs that we've been working with through our practice, it's about connection. It opens you up. It creates a receptivity in your body. It produces different chemicals in your system. So get comfortable, get tall, let your belly relax. It's amazing that when we really are in that disconnected, unconscious experience, how tense we get, how much holding there is. Because on some level, we believe we've got to do it all ourselves. And the universe is continually trying to tell us we're not alone. Relax. Notice your breath. Bring your hands together in front of the heart. And again, this is connection. And even in the way the connection happens between the two hands, you notice the intrinsic balance that occurs. The left and the right, as they meet each other, they automatically come together in balance. They know this. That's in there within each of us. And these are just practices to create some revelation, some revealing of what's already in there. Just stay with the breath. So we're going to make a little bit of noise. If you're around people, feel free to make the noise internally. And the noise is the same idea. It's about creating connection. So it creates frequency, vibration, and that vibration begins to resettle, to bring things back to balance, back together. So the sound is Om. Om. Okay? Let's try it out. Take a deep breath. 3 more. We take our hands to the forehead and then to the lips, to the heart. May our practice support us in opening to that deeper quality of connection that is intrinsic, innate to each of us. That sense of a deeper connectedness within ourselves that opens us to how we are all woven together. To be able to see through those eyes. And then to ourselves and to each other, we bow our heads. Namaste. So thank you so much for joining in and doing the practice today. So Wednesdays and Sundays here for the longer practice, but I'm going to start offering some shorter practices, 10, 20, 30-minute practices. We're going to put up 2 or 3 a week. So if you have anything in particular you would like to see in those, please do get in touch and let me know. If there's anything you'd like me to address or work with, be it something to do with the physical body, but equally in terms of meditation practices. I would ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. That would be great help for me. And if you know others that might benefit from the work, please spread the word. I'd really appreciate that. We have a month meditation coming up for September. So in about 2 weeks, we're going to do 30 days. Now that's going to be a live practice via Zoom. So you need to sign up to that through the website, michaelryanyoga.com. And you can also pay for the classes if that's something that's a possibility for you through my website. You can either subscribe for a monthly amount to do one of the full classes a week or to do the 2 full classes a week, or you can pay for an individual class or make a donation. So all of that is of great support and great help. And I hope you have a great day. And again, any feedback that you have is welcomed. All right. Take care of yourselves. Cheers. Bye. Now.